Hello, Gold Derby. I am Daniel Montgomery. I'm here with Riley Chow and Tony Ruiz. We are here to talk about Mr. Robot. We are here to talk about the Emmy nominations that it received last week, and we're also here to talk about the first two episodes of Miss Robot, 2.5 or 3 episodes, depending on how you divide them up. I think it's technically 3 episodes, the double premiere on July 13th, and then the next episode, which aired last night as we're recording this, July 20th. So first of all, starting off with the Emmy nominations, it's nominated 6 times. Best Drama Series, Best Actor, Rami Malek, Best Writing for Sam Esmail for the pilot episode, Best Score for the pilot episode, Best Casting, and also Best Sound Mixing. It does seem to me like it underperformed somewhat. What do you think, Riley?
It's a mixed bag. I mean, USA doesn't normally get Emmy nominations, so this is a big win for them. I think that what we were looking for, though, is whether it would be competitive to take down Game of Thrones potentially, and I'd say it isn't, because it doesn't have a directing nomination, no editing nomination, and both the directors and editors love pilots, and then also Christian Slater.
Yeah, Christian Slater was a weird kind of an interesting canary in the coal mine, I would say. It's one of those nominations you expect it to get if it's really strong enough to really pull off that win in the top category, because he won the Golden Globe, he won the Critics' Choice, he's been front and center campaigning for the show. He's the second most prominent actor, obviously, other than Rami Malek. But it's interesting that in the supporting actor category, they ended up voting for the other imaginary flashback character, who was Ben Mendelsohn this year, who was also dead and appears only in flashbacks and in hallucinations. So, so what did you think about those Emmy nominations, Tony?
I was at the two, other than Slater. I was really surprised that Slater didn't get in, especially after Golden Globes and Critics' Choice wins. He's also a producer. He's also listed as a producer on the series this year. But the directing one really surprised me. The lack of a directing nod really surprised me, because that show is so stylistically, so creatively shot, and that it kind of has the directing with a capital D on it, that I actually expected it to get a directing nod and was really surprised that it didn't, which I think shows that it's not going to take down Game of Thrones, if anything was in the first place.
No cinematography either.
Yeah, that was another weird one.
Or editing, which when you think about the visual style of the show, those are a couple of other major components that seemed like it should have gotten if they were really into it.
I wonder if the show didn't have like the biggest ratings. It was more of a kind of like a small cult, very passionate, rabid fan base for this show, which was enough to get it at least on the radars for the Emmys. I wonder if I think the really interesting thing will be to see what happens with this second season, and see if it goes up in nominations or down, to see if maybe it's now just getting on the Emmy radar, or whether it's just a kind of like they paid attention to it this year and then it drops away.
Yeah, and the interesting thing, we're all pretty much, I think, in agreement that it's probably not going to win Best Drama Series. But I wonder, there are 5 other categories that it could potentially win. Do we think it could win anything? Personally, I think, this is the kind of show that 2 years ago, under the old Emmy system, someone like Rami Malek, who is not a household name, before this, he would have benefited greatly from the episode submissions being paramount importance, and the writing category too. I feel like that, and I think writing is actually still in play potentially. But I feel like it's so much easier for sweeps to happen under the current voting system. What do you think about that, Riley?
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that its best chance is probably in music composition, because that category is not one where Game of Thrones or House of Cards is nominated, and they have a different balloting process too, more like the old system. But yeah, these bigger categories, I think they'll just get caught up in sweeps, caught up by shows where a lot of people are watching them.
Yeah, that the pilot, though, I kind of have hopes for that one, because you have the Battle of the Bastards with Game of Thrones. Now, Game of Thrones was kind of a surprise winner of writing last year. I think we all kind of knew, yeah, it'll probably win directing, but writing was like when it signaled that, like, okay, it's over, it's game over, it's Game of Thrones night. Battle of the Bastards, at least to me, wasn't really. It's such a big battle episode. It's not really writing intensive. Maybe that doesn't matter under this current system where they could just check off the show they like in every category, but I do feel like that might be an opening for the pilot of Mr. Robot. Do you think so, Tony?
I think it's possible. I mean, it was surprising, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think wasn't Battle of the Bastards the only episode that Game of Thrones submitted for writing?
Yeah,
I think so.
Yeah. Which was surprising to me, considering how acclaimed the finale was, and even the door. I was actually surprised. So yeah, I think writing is still in play. Although again, if there's a sweep for Game of Thrones, Battle of Bastards could easily win, just because that episode was so largely discussed and largely talked about and had so many big moments in it. I think that if we were still under the old tape system, I think Malik would be a much bigger competitor. I still think he is a competitor and lead actor, but I think he would have been an even stronger competitor under the old episode system.
Yeah, under the tape system, I would put Kevin Spacey 6th easily.
Yeah, I would too.
Yeah. I probably would as well. Probably somewhere towards the bottom end. The problem with Kevin Spacey, with the Frank Underwood as a character in terms of competing for Emmys, is it's not a showy character. It's very much on the same level of kind of dark, intense, just sinister, but not really showy. He's not really doing the kind of. He's not playing the mental illness that Rami Malek is playing. He's not even doing the kind of desperation that Bob Odenkirk is often doing. So if Kevin Spacey wins this one, he can just send an extra love letter to the TV Academy for changing its rules to allow for more of a popular vote, because he did win 2 SAG awards in a row for House of Cards. So I think if those hold here, now that he doesn't have a Bryan Cranston or a John Hamm to worry about, he's finally got this category all to himself potentially. I think that could be a Spacey's to win. Though I do think if there is anyone in the TV Academy watching these, if they're not familiar with Rami Malek and they want to see what the show is all about, he submitted the pilot episode. He could. I mean, it's only the second year of this new system. We don't know how much they do or don't matter, the episode submissions entirely, because we only have 1 year to go on. So I do think he has a chance, but I do think he would have had a much better chance 2 years ago. In fact, I might be predicting Rami Malek to win 2 years ago.
Yeah, I would too. And in fact, he had really 2 episodes that I thought I think he could have either gone with the pilot or he could have gone with I believe it's the Brave Traveler episode where he basically gets caught up in breaking the drug dealer out of jail, and it ends with that big scene in the trunk of the car. He has a lot of range in that episode, but the pilot is really good because he has the big long he has those speeches, and we know Emmy voters love speeches, and he's got the big speech at the beginning with the guy that he's blackmailing in the cafe, and then he's got the long speech to his therapist about his loneliness, and so it's a really good, especially for voters that are not familiar with the show. It's probably also strategic in terms of the pilot is less confusing than if you just throw episode 6 at somebody who has no concept of what's going on in the rest of the series.
Yeah, I saw people suggesting one of the later episodes too, where he finds out about who Mr. Robot is. But I prefer the pilot in this case because not only are you being introduced to the world of Mr. Robot, people often like to submit pilots because of that, but he's just such an original character that I think it really helps to get to know him a bit.
Yeah.
And so one of the advantages that Mr. Robot has, even if it doesn't win Best Drama Series in these other races too, is it's airing new episodes now. It returned for its second season on July 13th, the night before Emmy nominations were announced, which was pretty bold and could have looked bad if suddenly it had a massive shortfall, which it didn't. It got into most of the key races we were expecting, drama, writing, actor. These first 2 episodes, though, when I watch them, I mean, it feels like such a very stark contrast from season 1. In that season 1 was very much about story with with Elliot's mental illness and his mental state sort of carrying through as a thread until that explodes at the end of the season. We found out that what was really going on with him. Season 2, the first 2 weeks of it at least, feel very, very much very insular, very much about mood, not as much about story. At least so far, they're still sort of building up what's going on with him psychologically. It feels like these 2 episodes took place much more in Elliot's head than in the real world, even more so than season 1. What do you guys think?
Well, my response to the first 2 episodes is exactly what you're saying, is that I'm still trying to figure out where it's going, which has its pluses and its minuses. I mean, on one hand, you can tell that Ismail, has a vision for where he's going with this, but at the same time, insular, I think, is the right word, because there really is no interaction between the core cast like there was last season. I mean, Elliot and Mr. Robot are pretty much on their own. You've got Angela dealing with being an employee at Evil Corps, and then we've only seen kind of snippets of the whole F Society crew, and you're almost waiting to see how these pieces are going to come back together. And you've already seen a couple of major departures, particularly in these last couple of episodes. I found it really interesting. Both of the major deaths, which we can talk about in a little bit, surprised me. Didn't see them coming. It was like, wow, that's interesting to take that tact and kill off a major character that quickly.
Yeah, my problem with the show is that I like Elliot. I find him really interesting. I do not care for any of the other characters. I don't care about the childhood friend, about his sister, about Christian Slater hanging around. So when they had the first 2 episodes that aired on the same night, and then there's that 23-minute stretch in the middle where it's just following Sandrine Holt as she's disabling her security system. I've never seen her before. Just not interested at all. And I find maybe it's the result of Sam Esmail. He's doing all the right. Well, he's not doing all the writing, but he's written these episodes that we've seen, and he's directing the entire season. He's also executive producer, showrunner. I wonder if maybe it's too much just one person without any oversight, because these episodes have also been very long. Like the first episode they aired last week was supposed to be 1 episode, and then they aired it as 2, but they ended up being the 2 shortest episodes of the series, both about 40 minutes, whereas this week was about over 60. So I think what ended up happening there was they were shooting for a supersized episode like this week, and then they kind of just said, it's all good. We'll just not cut out anything. But I think that kind of thing is important so that you can keep momentum going and keep interest up throughout these episodes.
Yeah, I actually did like the scene in the season premiere where that that woman we've never seen before, who I'm already forgetting what her name was, whose house is going all haywire, and she's trying to disable her security system. I thought that was really sticking around that scene for as long as we did. I thought it had an atmosphere and a dread and sort of a horror movie kind of feeling of like impending doom that really, really worked for it. And it didn't end up being impending doom; just ended up being F Society just trying to run her out so that they can use her house for a while. But I really liked the paranoia of it. It really, really fit well in the style of the show and in the core themes of the show.
The one thing that I think needs to start happening soon is, like, if still we're focusing on this F Society thing, they seem so scattershot right now. I mean, the whole scene where Brian Stokes Mitchell is basically lured to the middle of a park and has to dump out money and burn it. That was interesting, but I'm not sure what the point was. You actually don't find out until I think halfway through this week's episode, what that was even about like the whole like Evil Corps, just throwing away. It was basically to make Evil Corps look even worse than possible. Like, oh look, they're burning money. But the ends need to come together faster for me, because right now it seems so fragmented in terms of, there's this and there's this. And now we have the Grace Gummer character as the FBI investigator, and her working her way through this case. And you have a feeling all of these storylines are going to intersect at some point. And they are working with a longer season this year. They're doing 12 episodes instead of 10.
But possibly accidentally, though.
That's true.
Those last two episodes are just going to be trimmings from all the other episodes that
Like
they
the
just
last two
ran
episodes
long.
have the same title. It's just a part 1, part 2, just like the premiere.
Yeah, that's true.
What got me about that money scene was they said it was $5.9 million, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he dumps it out, he sets it on fire, and then a crowd gathers, and they're like, oh, time to Snapchat. Whereas I feel like if there's $5.9 million there, you gotta run and grab like as much as you can before it all goes
I'm gonna
up in
grab a
flames.
brick before it.
Oh yeah, like especially
and
when
then
you see him
Snapchat.
pouring, especially when you see him pouring the accelerant on it, and you're like, oh no, I'm getting some money.
Yeah.
You just dry it off, But yeah, I agree that it's a little fragmented this season. It's actually one of the things that it reminds me of, and it's something I'm actually concerned about with the show in terms of its larger story arc. Is it reminds me of season 3 of Orphan Black, where you have this show that really started off great and then it kind of went off the deep end with the conspiracy getting bigger and bigger and more complex and a little bit unwieldy and you have all the different characters on that show played by Tatiana Maslany going off in their own different storylines that are they just feel like all over the place. And I feel like that's what we have here. We have a lot of like season 1 exploded the kind of the status quo of the story by the end of the season, and so everyone is scattered off in their different directions due to the consequences of that. And now we need to find a way to get them back in, to get them back to a core story, to get them into one kind of arc to figure out where this is going without it getting too convoluted with too many different strands of conspiracy and plot. But to keep things chugging along, and Orphan Black did fix that in season 4. So I hope this show brings these characters and these storylines together a little bit more, even if we have to ask Amazon Echo to do it for us, which felt like they got a big shout out, several shout outs from Grace Gummer in this last episode.
I find that so many of these shows that get lost in their mythology. Orphan Black is a great example. It starts off from a very simple place. It's just this woman trying to find, well, I forget now, was she trying to find her daughter or something? It's just kind of a small identity story. Or I think about Prison Break. There's this guy trying to break his brother out of prison. Or Heroes, where it's just all these people finding out they have superpowers, and suddenly they bring in something called the company, and then the show just becomes all about that. And like for me, like I said, I just want to see Rami Malek do, his thing, wear his hoodie and act crazy and just try to keep his sanity.
Yeah, Lost was similar to that for me because I was a latecomer to Lost and I tried to binge it, and about halfway through it I was like, where are we? What are we doing? And it got way too full of itself for my taste. This has, again, we're only on the 3rd episode, or 2nd, however you look at it, of the 2nd season, so there's still time. But again, they've got to start tying some of these things together, or at least point them in a direction where they're going to start coming together. Because there's so many, and there's still, even with all of this new stuff, there's still so much in terms of loose threads that haven't even been addressed. Like, where is Tyrell Wellick? We've only heard him in one scene on the phone. In the meantime, we get his Lady Macbeth S&M wife which that was the creepiest scene, like, known to man. I still don't. I mean, that character was not my favorite last season. I thought, the Lady Macbeth thing has been way too overdone, and but we still have to address that. When is the whole White Rose thing going to come back in? If for no other reason than for BD Wong to come back, because I thought just the 2 scenes that he had last season were just spectacular. So there's a lot of things that still need to come together for this, and I'm keeping my fingers crossed.
Yeah, I loved Riley, when you talked about the company coming into this this conspiracy element. And I think I wrote after I caught up on Orphan Black this season, I wrote about the trope, the TV trope that trips up all of these shows potentially, is the sinister organization, which I just call Sin Org. Because Sin Org comes in to all of these shows that start in one place, and then they build the conspiracy that grows bigger and bigger and bigger, and eventually the show is no longer in control of it. It's sort of gone in too many directions. And happened to Heroes, happened to Orphan Black, happened to Revenge even. There's always Sin Org coming in. It's this mysterious conglomerate of evil people who are doing evil. And here we actually have Evil Corp, but it feels like what makes me hopeful about this show is that Evil Corp isn't so much they're the perpetrators of a lot of misdeeds, but a lot of the story is about things being done to them by F Society and Elliot and his team. So I have a hope that this show can keep it together. If they add in another conglomerate, like Evil Corp is a subsidiary of giant global Evil Corp, or something like that, then we can be worried. But I still have, I'm optimistic on that end.
Yeah, it is very early to jump the gun as we are doing. I find it interesting. The critics, I find, are not responding as well to the show this year as I expected. I mean, last year they got 79 on Metacritic for their first few episodes, which was understandable because it's just the beginning. They didn't really know what they were looking at. But what I've noticed that with shows that tend to get underrated when they first come out, the critics are extra generous the next year. A good example is Unreal, which came back a few weeks ago. Their first season got 78 on Metacritic. Second season jumped to 87, even though now there's this consensus online that this season is much worse than the first. Whereas Mr. Robot only jumped from 79 to 81, and it didn't get that many reviews. So it seems like they're on a bit of a shorter leash. And their ratings, I thought, would also go up this year, but they've just been going down, and last night was their first episode under 1 million viewers.
It is. I think what's going on in season 2 is like the three of us have. It's sort of a wait and see period, because these first 2 episodes have been so kind of mysterious and internal and not driving story so much as building the pieces together. So I think a lot of people are sort of still kind of unsure of what they're looking at. Just like season 1, where where people start out with the show and by the end of the season it's something completely different. One thing that I think these first 2 episodes have, besides I think the directing of these first 2 episodes was just outstanding. The atmosphere, the visual style, which carries over from last year, but just the tension, the visual tension in just the whole show is fantastic. And also Rami Malek. In these last 2 episodes, this past week's episode, I feel like he could submit this as an episode next year, because he gets everything. He gets high on ADHD medication. He has a giant, this big rant against God, like Martin Sheen in the West Wing style, except not in Latin. Although for all he knows, he was talking Latin. He's not in his right mind. And so you get all of that showy performance from him. That I thought, he's just been fantastic. If this new season so far helps anyone win an Emmy for the last season at these Emmys coming up, it could be Rami Malek.
Yeah, I completely agree. Especially that scene with the church group was just And I think my favorite line in that whole scene is where he says, "Did I say that out loud?" Where it just cracked me up because, and that's one of the things that this show still does very well is its ability to completely throw you off. Um, I don't know, Riley, what you thought, but the scene where he gets kidnapped and you see them mixing the cement again. Visual tension build up was fantastic. I was like, what? It's like, wow, they're really carrying this out. And then it's revealed that it's just Christian Slater forcing him to throw up all the Adderall that he took. I thought that was such a really good scene. Gross, but just really, really well done. And the two, the scene with spoiler alert, with Gideon being shot at the end of the first episode, I did not see that coming at all, and I thought that was really, really shocking the way they did that. It seems like what we're all saying is we need to start. That there's still some very, very good things happening on this show, acting-wise, direction-wise, that maybe there's just some things they need to tidy up as far as telling the story goes.
Yeah, I liked at the beginning of the second episode where, people say that TV is cinematic, whereas that episode actually started with credits like over top of aerial shots of the city, with just music playing, nothing actually happening, but it looks like the start of a movie. I thought that was kind of fun. There are lots of visual flourishes that have happened in these first couple episodes with their montages and I don't know whatnot.
Yeah, and I'm also really intrigued by the Craig Robinson character. I'm very, very excited about where that's going. One, for Craig Robinson as an actor, I mean, he's so much better known for comedy, for The Office, and here he's playing someone a lot darker and another kind of mysterious character who we're seeing a lot of him, but every new scene we get of him seems to raise more questions than it answers, and in a way that I actually like for this new character. So I'm really hopeful about where that's going.
Yeah, I think he's fantastic, and you can't quite figure him out. That you can't figure out which side is he playing for. Is this guy, a good guy? Is he a bad guy? Is he somewhere in the middle? What are his objectives? I mean, he's clearly, wanting something from Elliot. That's why he's taking such an interest in him, and whether his attempt to it plays to me like he's trying to ingratiate himself to Elliot so that Elliot will do whatever that whole thing with the guy being beaten up, whatever that, I forget what I'm not technically savvy at all, so when they were talking about wallets, and I don't remember what that was, but clearly he's involved with something that's maybe not on the up and up, but you still can't quite figure out where it's going to go. And I'm wondering if that's going to come into more play next week.
What do you guys think about that very prevalent online theory these days about what's going on with the Elliot storyline? Are you familiar with that one?
No.
It's
Not
where
me either.
a lot of people are thinking that the entire Elliot arc and why he's not interacting with any of the other known characters is that it's all in his head and that he's in a mental institution right now. And that's why he's watching basketball games. That's why he's hanging out with that guy who is always talking about Seinfeld. That's why he has to take his pills and he has to go on this kind of daily routine. And that he's kind of working out his own issues, and that's why, nobody's talking to him.
That's interesting, because the one thing that is still a big unanswered question for me is as Elliot's mother. I'm so interested to see if they actually develop her, because she's never really in the scene. She's always just kind of on the periphery as this barking, strict, humorless person. But that's an interesting theory. It's kind of like she's the Nurse Ratched in the outskirts of the mental institution.
Yeah, I'm sort of I never do homework before I start a new season, so there are always threads from the first season that or the previous season of a show that I'm always catching up on the fly. His mother is dead, isn't she? Supposed to be?
I don't know. I was very surprised when they showed her in the show. I assumed that she was dead or something.
Yeah, I've been assuming that she's been another sort of hallucination or part of his mental programming to kind of keep himself in control, was creating a kind of mental image of her. Either, I don't know that he even, because she doesn't torment him, but again, she just seems to be this sort of a controlling force that's there but not really there. So I've just been assuming that she's another hallucination. But I'm not sure about the mental institution theory. It's interesting, but if it's true, I'm worried about how they would, one, reveal that, and two, get him out to reconnect with the rest of the story.
Yeah, at some point he has to find Tyrell too.
Yes. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, Tyrell has to come back, but that's really interesting. It's like because immediately as soon as Riley said that, I was thinking, oh God, is this another like snow globe from Saint Elsewhere?
No, it's Patrick Duffy dreaming. And that's what it is.
Ah.
One thing that I feel like this show needs that it had in season 1, and it's lost for 2 reasons, is it needs a kind of relatable everyman character. It lost that in Gideon, who was shot in the neck, and it lost that in Angela, who sort of went over to the dark side. Those were sort of characters who could sort of anchor the show to the real world and to the audience in a more concrete way. That I don't feel we have that right now. I feel like we need some sort of a new entry point to ground us into the rest of the story.
Maybe the FBI character?
Maybe, but she's a little cracked in a way. She's not sleeping. She might have depression or anxiety issues, or both. So
she's offering to roll a joint for somebody's
for
the one guy's mother. I was like, okay, yeah, but I think that's a really good point. Is that Gideon really was, and to even a certain degree, Shayla in season 1, there was this real person that was kind of like our the realistic embodiment of the impact of these decisions that all these characters are making. And Daniel and I have talked about how the Angela story needs to go somewhere fast because I'm growing weary of it. I don't, if she's, the kind of the theory that she's, Breaking Bad. I love that that's now a part of the television lexicon. She's doing it too fast. And it was so abrupt at the end of last season when she had that scene in the shoe store, and and then she has that scene in the bar in episode 1 where she basically really, it almost felt like really rehearsed to me, where she was saying, no, I am going to do this, and you don't value me, and I am a person of value. Really? Already you're that fast? So it'd be interesting to see where this goes. And after that scene in the restaurant with Price, where he basically introduces her to these 2 people that were directly involved in making the decisions that led to her mother's death. It's kind of like if you take emotion out of the question, he's so creepy. Price is so creepy to me, and I love that.
Yeah, I actually love the Price character. He's this kind of pragmatic evil. This very practical, very, like you said, take emotion out of it, and the decisions are easy. And he is compelling in a way that I could buy, that Angela would buy into. But I do think that needed to happen more gradually. I do think we needed to see her be sort of seduced by this ideology, instead of what happened was we basically got 1 episode, she's in the belly of the beast. So I'm hopeful about this new getting her getting the evidence. I hope she actually uses it, because I think that would be actually at this point more interesting than if she sat on it for a more cynical reason.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, is that storyline going to come back to Elliot? That's what I'm curious about.
Yeah, I actually think, what I think, because, they started the show, they were so close friends, or at least she was to him. He's kind of not, it's hard for him to be close to anyone. Now that he's sort of off in this one direction and she's sort of off in this completely different direction, now sort of working for what he's been working against, I almost feel like they're building this towards some sort of end game where like, I don't know, maybe she becomes the head of Evil Corp and suddenly they have to battle each other, which could be interesting, but that would be a long game, and I'm not sure that how the character will be sustained going on that path that she's on.
Yeah, if that's the direction they're going, I think they're telegraphing it way too obviously. That should take some time and maybe shouldn't be just that obvious. Or they could be just throwing a fake at us and saying, no, that's what we want you to think. I mean, this is a show that for me at least prides itself on being unpredictable. And so maybe there's some unseen forces that will that will reveal themselves in the next few episodes.
I saw that Sam Esmail, he said that he doesn't want to have a big twist this season like last year because he doesn't want that to be what the show is, where everybody's always trying to guess what's the next big twist that's going to be revealed. So there's that to consider as well.
I think that's actually a good instinct on his part. I hope he sticks to that, because if it became the new twist every season, then one, it would make the plot far too convoluted. Like if you're doing a new big twist every season and twisting around everything you thought you knew about the show, it becomes unmanageable by season, I don't know, 5 or 6 if it goes that far. And there's also the risk of Shyamalan syndrome, where you do one twist in one movie and everyone loves it, and you do another twist in another movie and everybody kind of likes it, and then you keep doing it into diminishing returns. Sam Esmail, I think he's such a good visual storyteller, and he has such a great command of tone and such a great command of the Elliot character, especially, if not as much the others as we've discussed. I really, really feel like if he zeroes in on this character and his journey and bringing it together with what is happening to all these other characters, I think it could be really great. Because another show that actually reminds me of is Bates Motel, which is a show which has a really, really great core dynamic between Norma and Norman Bates, the two central characters, and all the other stuff that goes around them isn't quite at the same level as that central storyline. And so I feel like once Elliot becomes less isolated, which I feel like is inevitable, they can't have him go the whole season in a room throwing up and popping pills after throwing them up, and he can't do that for 12 episodes, hopefully. So once he starts to reconnect with other actual humans, we might actually see. I think we'll see this story this season go somewhere. I'm still really, really excited about it because it has so many of the great creative components to working in its favor.
Yeah, you can only be shot in the head so many times.
A couple of times at least, apparently, but
apparently. Apparently.
At the Emmys next year, I think Sam Esmail, he'll be able to get the show that directing nomination, assuming it continues along the same level of quality, because he is the only one directing the season. So first of all, he'll only have to submit one episode. There won't be any option for vote splitting. But also, this kind of auteur approach is something that I think people really admire, and we've seen them award or nominate with True Detective and The Nick. And then also, Game of Thrones is off, so they're all those open slots. So.
Oh yes. Oh, every show. I feel like I almost feel like Mr. Robot should have waited a little bit to get the second season out, because knowing that Game of Thrones now is going to be out, they should have been like, oh, okay, we gotta work this, make sure this is our best season ever, because this is going to be our shot. We might not get another one.
What's good about Mr. Robot is I think like it and The Americans are kind of the only two dramas that are on the upswing, whereas House of Cards is kind of old news at this point, and same with the other shows, Homeland. So like if any returning show is going to take the Emmy, I would think it'd be one of those two.
And that's actually the good thing about a show like, we talked about the 6 nominations it got, which was less than we were expecting in a couple of places. But that's actually a good thing for some shows like this. A lot of shows that come out of the gate huge, it's just a gradual slide downward, either because it's been awarded enough or because the quality declines. But we see it happen all the time. I mean, Homeland, Modern Family, after years of dominance, it's sliding down, and Mad Men, even though it was consistently nominated in most categories every year, its nomination count started going down. Downton Abbey, its count started going down. But when you have a show like, consider Veep, that show started modestly. It didn't win until last season, season 4, and now it's got 16 nominations. 17, but were it not for the exclusion of Peter McNichol. And so shows that take a while to heat up, they sometimes end up in a place higher than other shows that are at their best when they start. Breaking Bad is another example. So assuming the show can keep it up, I think we might see Emmy growth.
I think so, and I think that with only 6 nominations, I mean, first of all, for a USA show to really break into some of those big categories, I think the only real USA show that has really won anything was Monk for Tony Shalhoub, and I don't even remember. I don't think that was ever nominated for comedy series, was it?
I don't think so.
So this is really a new stepping stone for USA, and so they can maybe start using that to build some buzz around the show, and but. The thing that worries me is, the viewership is down, and we still need to see where this goes, and see if people will hang in there for where this goes.
Yeah, I'm hopeful, and I think this is one of those shows that, especially if the season goes somewhere really, really good, we might see a lot of the people who were reserved about the show. It might happen like season 1 did. It might sort of be that slow burn of buzz where people are like, oh, the show is heating up again, and people start to catch up and start buzzing about it again. But what do you guys? What is both of your number one wish for this season after having seen these first 2 episodes?
Riley, you got anything?
I'll say at the end of the last episode, I liked it where the FBI character saw the F Society sign. What did she say? Like, you've got to be kidding me. I thought that was fun.
Yeah, I think what I'm really interested to see is I'm really interested to see what the mechanism is that brings Tyrell Wellick back into the situation. Because he is such an interesting character. He's both completely ambitious and manipulative, and as we found out in last season, murderous. But at the same time, he's got this pathetic quality about him. When he gets fired at the end of last season and he's practically begging, there's this really unhinged quality about him, and so I'm really interested to see what brings him back in. And the other thing that I'm interested to see is how the whole, it looks like they're setting up this next week's episode as the big kind of showdown between Mr. Robot and Elliot, the battle for his soul, so to speak. So I'm interested to see how that works, because, the show is most interesting when it's having those two against each other. And I'm kind of enjoying seeing Christian Slater as more malevolent this season than even he was last season.
Yeah, the thing I'm most hopeful for is that Craig Robinson character. I feel like we don't know exactly where that's going yet, but clearly he's involved with some other group of people or some other, if not a conspiracy, then some other plot that's going on. And I'm really I really want to see that dovetail Elliot back into the main story, and to really see where this character is going. That's that. I'm fascinated to watch him at this point, to give this kind of performance that we haven't seen from him before. So that's my major wish. And with that, we will see next week what of our wishes have come true by next week. And we will reconvene next week to talk about episode 3 or 4, depending on how we're counting them. So thank you, Riley. Thank you, Tony, for talking to me about Mr. Robot and the Emmys and season 2 so far. We will see you next week.
Bye-bye.